I was a young woman with no direction, no home, and no hope, and worst of all, I hated God. I believed He had abandoned me, left me in the darkest place imaginable. But something happened, something so unexpected, it changed everything I thought I knew about faith, forgiveness, and redemption. Today, I want to tell you how a girl who had nothing found light when everything seemed lost, and why this story might be the answer you've been searching for. I grew up in a broken home, where God was never mentioned, not because He didn't exist, but because He simply wasn't part of our lives. My parents divorced when I was just 7, and that wound would stay with me for years. My father was an atheist, my mother a non-practicing Catholic. And me? I carried a deep emptiness that slowly consumed me from the inside. I remember lying awake at night, staring at the cracked ceiling of my room, wondering if anyone, anywhere, truly cared about me. The answer always seemed to be, no. By the age of 14, my life had already spiraled into darkness. Nights at bars became routine, and drugs felt like the only way to escape the pain I carried. I spent my time in suffocating places filled with flickering neon lights and the thick smell of cigarette smoke. I was surrounded by people who didn't care about me, blurry faces laughing too loudly, with eyes just as empty as mine. Deep down, I was still searching, for a sign, anything, to prove that I was still alive. I began hurting myself, not for attention, but because physical pain was the only thing that made me feel real. Each cut was a silent scream, a desperate attempt to prove I still existed. Then everything changed one night, a night I will never forget. I had just returned home after another lost night of partying and addictions. The air was heavy, smelling of rain and wet asphalt. I climbed the stairs of our apartment, exhausted, the weight of the world on my shoulders. At the top, my stepfather was waiting, blocking the path. His eyes burned with a hatred that cut deeper than any blade. He spat words at me that still echo in my memory. "You're worthless. You don't deserve love, care, or even a roof over your head." Before he could push me down the stairs, my mother appeared. But what came next was even worse. A cruel choice was made, him or me. My mother, tears in her eyes, chose him. That night, I was thrown out of the house with nothing but a worn-out backpack, filled not just with clothes, but with the crushing weight of abandonment. With a shattered heart, I boarded a plane to a distant place where my father lived. I hadn't seen him since I was 5, and his image in my mind was little more than a faded shadow. At the airport, under the cold lights and the hum of strangers, I found him. But he wasn't the savior I had hoped for. He was thin, with sunken eyes, messy hair, and a distant gaze. He told me, in a hoarse voice, that he had lost everything: his job, his home, his dignity. He was addicted to drugs, living in a tent on the beach, the sound of the waves his only companion. That man, whom I had once imagined as a refuge, was just as broken as I was. And in that moment, staring at him, I asked myself, is this what's waiting for me? A future without a home, without love, without direction. The months that followed were a blur of instability. I jumped from place to place, crashing on couches, staying in overcrowded shelters, even sleeping on park benches when I had nowhere else to go. I was the teenager no one wanted around, the gothic girl with smeared black makeup, torn dark clothes, addicted and angry. My soul was a battlefield, and I was losing the war. Until, almost like a miracle, strangers began to cross my path. People I had never met before opened their homes to me, offering a hot meal and a place to sleep. But there was one condition: I had to go to church with them every Sunday. I resisted with everything I had. I wore my dark clothes like armor, used rebellious language as a shield, and made sure to sit in the very back pew, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor. The pastor preached about a God who loved unconditionally, but I didn't believe it. How could I? My life was proof that love like that didn't exist. Week after week, I listened to messages about grace and redemption, but they hit me like raindrops on a closed window. They never got in. My chest was a knot of anger and resentment. How could God love someone like me? How could He allow so much suffering? But God didn't give up on me. The biggest turning point came when I found out I was pregnant. I was 19, alone, broke, and completely lost, and the thought of becoming a mother terrified me. I seriously considered ending that life before it even had a chance to begin. I didn't feel capable of taking care of myself, let alone a baby. I made an appointment with a doctor, determined to go through with the abortion. But before I could take that step, a woman showed up at my door. She was pregnant herself, with a calm light in her eyes, and she carried a story that would change everything. She told me about a young girl who had died during an abortion, performed by the very same doctor I was about to see. Her voice trembled, but there was strength in her words. I know you don't believe, but my God will take care of this baby. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't just fear or doubt, it was as if a small, flickering light had begun to shine in the middle of my darkness. I sat on the floor of my temporary room, holding the pregnancy test, and cried. I hadn't asked for grace, but somehow, it had found me. I decided to keep my child. When he was born, with wide eyes and a cry that sounded like music, I gave him a name that means, God has given grace. He was my miracle, proof that something greater was moving in my life. But the battle didn't end there. Becoming a mother didn't erase my demons. By day, I worked as a waitress, struggling to pay bills and give my son the life he deserved. But at night, I slipped back into old habits, bars, drugs, the endless search for something to fill the emptiness. I was living a double life, torn between my love for my son and the guilt that kept pulling me down. Then one night changed everything again. I was driving home after another long, wasted night. The radio was barely audible, and the cold air crept in through the cracked window. Suddenly, flashing red and blue lights filled my rearview mirror. It was a routine traffic stop. My heart raced as the officer smelled the alcohol on my breath. Handcuffed and sitting in the back of the police car, I felt the crushing weight of failure. And in the cold silence of that night, I made my first honest prayer, still full of anger. If you're real, why are you doing this to me? Why are you letting me drown like this? A few days later, still shaken, something unexpected happened. I was at work, wiping down tables in a haze, my heart heavy as lead, when I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. It was a coworker named Elias. He had kind eyes and a peace about him that felt otherworldly. With a voice that was calm yet firm, he said, I have a message for you. It's from God. I didn't know anything about God. To me, he was just a distant idea, no different from Buddha or Muhammad. All I wanted was help. A sign that I wasn't alone. Elias invited me to a prayer meeting that night. I hesitated, but something inside me, maybe desperation, maybe a flicker of hope, told me to go. I walked into a small room with plastic chairs and a handful of people. The atmosphere was like nothing I had ever known. People were pacing, praying in languages I didn't understand, their voices rising and falling like a strange, powerful melody. Suddenly, they gathered around me, laid their hands on my shoulders. Elias looked into my eyes and said, This is a matter of life or death. And in that moment, something supernatural happened. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I saw a vivid image in my mind. I was in a car, crashing at high speed, the sound of shattering glass ringing in my ears. The vision shook me. Elias looked at me and asked, Do you want to receive Jesus into your life? My voice came out as a whisper, Whoever you are, Jesus, come into my life and change everything. What happened next is something I'll never forget. It felt like warm oil was being poured over my head, flowing down to my feet, warming every part of me. My body began to tremble, not from fear, but from a presence I couldn't explain. It was as if the heavy stones I had carried for over 20 years, pain, rage, abandonment, had been lifted. For the first time, I felt like I was truly being born. When I opened my eyes, the colors around me looked more vibrant, the lights brighter, like I was seeing the world for the very first time. I had given my life to Jesus. If this story has touched your heart, come walk this journey with me. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support messages of hope and transformation. Your presence here means the world, to me and to others who need to hear that they are not alone. But the truth is, life didn't turn into a fairy tale after that. I was still facing a court case that could change everything: my freedom, my chance to raise my son, my future. Over the next 3 months, something miraculous happened. I was completely freed from drugs. I walked with a new strength, like a renewed woman, but the shadow of the courtroom still hung over me. I knew that without a miracle, I could go back to prison. On the morning of my trial, I sat on a cold courtroom bench, my heart pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. As I waited to be called, I heard a voice inside me, not audible, but crystal clear: tell the truth. It was the same presence I had felt at that prayer meeting. With a lump in my throat, I asked my lawyer to let me speak to the prosecutor. I told him everything: my pain, my mistakes, my fight to change, and my love for my son. The prosecutor, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, listened in silence. When I finished, he said something I'll never forget: you are not your mistakes. I see you're trying, and I want to give you a chance. When the judge struck the gavel and declared me free, I felt the world stop for a moment. I walked out of the courtroom with tears pouring down my face, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. In the parking lot, under a gray sky that seemed to split open with rays of sun, I lifted my arms and began to shout, praising God for what He had done. My voice echoed in the air, blending with the wind, as I glorified the one who had set me free. It was in that moment that I truly understood the message of the cross, not just with my mind, but in every fiber of my being. Jesus shed His blood to pay the price for my sins, a price I should have paid behind bars. I did the crime. I should have served the time. But God, in His mercy, erased my past and let me walk out a free woman. As I stood there, still trembling, I heard that same soft yet powerful voice once more. It was as if God stood beside me, pointing toward the courthouse behind me: see that judge? See that justice system? I'm above all of it. I've been with you your whole life, even when you couldn't see me. That was my woman at the well moment, just like in the Bible, when Jesus said, "Go, and sin no more." In that instant, I realized I was truly free, not just from the law's chains, but from the prison of addiction, pain, and shame that had bound me for so long. God gave me the chance to raise my son. He gave me the opportunity to live as a new woman, free from drugs, alcohol, and everything that once enslaved me. And today, I believe with all my heart that He wants to do the same for you. God wants to clean your past, erase the stains, and breathe life into the dreams He once placed in your heart, for you, for your children, for those you love. If He could take a broken, drug-addicted, lost teenage girl like me, He can do the same for you. This isn't just my story. It's a calling, for everyone who feels they've lost everything. No matter how dark the night may seem, there is a light waiting for you. God has a destiny for your life, and the power of His love has already paid the price for your freedom. So rise today. Take a step toward Him, and receive the new life He's offering. And if this story touched you, don't miss the next video. I'll be sharing an incredible story of how God revealed Himself in a supernatural way to change the course of an entire family. Click now and dive into this powerful journey of faith. Thank you for listening. God bless you.